Moin! And welcome to the links! In today's video, we finally take the long-awaited giveaway doll. If you remember, I gave you some options to choose from and then picked one random comment. The winner comment came from Yolandi Grant. Congratulations again, and I'm really sorry if I say your name wrong. But it said base A, Rochelle, skin none, so I didn't have to change it, hair R1, it's a very light pink, for body mods, cat, and for her personality, sweet, Asian, big-hearted. The eye color was up to me. So let's start! Like I said, this was the base I had to work with. In my opinion, a pretty good choice because Rochelle already has a lovely face mold. The only thing that bothered me was her hands. I thought they might look good as claws for a cat, but she was going to be a lovely and friendly character, so After a short discussion with Yolandi, we both decided to change them into more delicate ones. So I took these hands from a Clio doll. They're always a little smaller than the ones from other dolls, but I thought that would fit perfectly for this character. But let's stop talking and finally start the project. The first step is always the preparation before customization by removing factory paint and hair and sanding the body. If you want to know how I exactly did this, watch my How I Do Stuff video about that topic. I link it in the description and at the end of this video. I started with the head by removing these ear thingies. I also had the option to just leave them on and build her new ones around them, but I felt like making them completely new. For that, I took some ordinary paper clips, bent them in place and poked the wire through the head to have a nice base for my beloved epoxy clay. Just mixing part A and B together and it's ready to use. I placed the clay onto the wire and formed two cute cat ears. Or at least I tried. It took me really long to form these and ensure that they won't look like wolf or fox ears. But in the end, I was quite happy with the result. I first made the rough shape with my fingers before I switched to my clay tools and formed the details. In the end, I smoothed everything out with water. I guess most of you already know that I really like trying out new things. So I thought, hey, why not giving her a tail? Without any more thinking, I took my dremel tool and made a hole in her lower back. So far, so good. The holes in her upper back otherwise had to be closed. So I took a little bit of my epoxy and just stuffed it in. But then I still had some epoxy left and it would have been unforgivable to throw it away. So I had no choice but making her more animal mods. Moreover, I absolutely love paws, so I just had to give her some, don't you think? And they're super cute. I first put some clay on the toes, formed the rough shape and sculpted some toes with my clay tool. After that, I smoothed everything out with water to receive a nice transition. In the end, I still had some epoxy left, so I formed two little belts as accessories. They ended up looking just like balls, but well, I take them. You know, every Lynx doll needs some inserted eyes, of course. So I removed her ears after marking the place and started cutting the eye holes. Sadly, I somehow lost the footage of that, but you can watch some of my previous repaints to see the process if you're interested. A little sanding and her eye holes were done. Now it was time for some paint. You remember her brown hands? They had to be colored to match the rest of the doll. So I sprayed them with a plastic primer before painting. I'm not completely sure if this primer really helped, but okay, I guess it's better than nothing. When I changed the color of something, I always start with a base layer of white. In this case, I used some acrylic paints. I did the same with her new ears and feet. Her original skin tone is a really strange grey with some yellow inside, and I was pretty sure that it would have been hard to get this tone right. Moreover, I really liked the idea of giving her white paws. So I decided that I'd take a makeup sponge to make a soft gradient that still looked a little like fur. I also wanted her hands to stay white, so I did the same gradient on her arms. After the paint dried, I decided to push the idea of the white paws a little more and drew some toe beans on her feet, as well as a grey palm on her hands. One of the last things to paint were the bell balls that I just covered in gold acrylic paint and sealed with a high gloss varnish later. For her ears, I painted them pink on the outside and white on the inside. After that dried, I gave them a little fur by gluing some flocken on. This flocking is just the yarn I also use for her hair later, but cut in really tiny pieces. Speaking of hair, I also painted her head with some light pink to give a better illusion of a fully haired head. Then it was time for the reroot, the part that always takes forever. Like usual, I prepared some strands of yarn by splitting up a normal piece and made some knots in one end. Cutting off the excess, punching the needle through the plastic and threading the yarn. If this was too quick for you, no worries, I'm pretty sure that I'll make a video about that in detail. But now we can jump to the point where I rerooted the whole head and brushed out the yarn. For that I used a wired pet brush and always took a small section to brush gently from bottom to top. Like that I made my way around the whole head. She looks like a troll in this stage, don't you think? After that I washed the whole head with water and fabric softener before flatting the yarn with a flat iron. I learned that it's better to first dry the hair completely before flatting it, because if it's still wet, it looks ugly. You can of course wait for it to dry after flatting to see the final result, but I'm impatient. For the flatting, I again took one small section, brushed it again very carefully, and then went over it with my flat iron, very slowly. So yeah, when it's completely dry and flattened, the yarn looks like this. Very shiny and soft. I always love this stage of the process. Speaking of favorite parts of the customization, now it was time for the face swap! I wrapped the hair in plastic foil and sprayed the head with Mr. Super Clear sealant. After that, I started blushing the lips with my soft pastels. I always struggle with the mouth, so I decided to do it first this time, and it turned out pretty good, I think. I continued the face up with some blushing on her forehead, cheeks and nose, with the same light pink as her lips. The goal for me was to bring the skin and hair color together by working in some pinks in the face. I then used some dark grays around her eye holes to give her face a little more depth. After that, I started using my watercolor pencils to draw the eyes. This time I wanted to give them a little more realism, so I started with the inner corner. Sadly, I don't have a real skin color in my collection, so I had to improvise a little bit by mixing some colors. I also painted a little inside the eye holes to receive a somehow realistic waterline. For her upper eyeline, I used directly black to receive a strong and beautiful look. I again drew a little inside the eye hole and also a bit above the inner eye corner. To be honest, I just went back and forth, added more colors, a few lines here and there, to build up a detailed eye. It was the first time I painted this much detail, but in my opinion it was absolutely worth it, and I'd do this again. When I was satisfied with my pencil work, I took a small brush to add some dark pastels under the eye and above. I again went back and forth with my colors, adding some darks and some pinks to bring it all together. I also gave her a little animal nose because cute! I admit that she looks a little more like a lion than a cat, but lions are just big cats, right? As a finishing touch, I added some whites here and there to emphasize some shapes. Oh, and a little tip I now learned. If your pencil is not working too great, just wet the tip. Especially with light colors, it's really helpful. I was so concentrated with the eyes that I almost forgot the eyebrows. As a last touch, I added some pink ones to match the hair color. I was pretty happy with the face, but her body needed some blushing too. I went in with some pink and grays like I did it with the face. After everything was done, I sealed body and head with Mr. Super Clear again. After that, I added another layer of Liquitex matte varnish, but it turned out glossy on the face, so I had to spray it again with MSC. So, now that she had a beautiful face, she needed some eyes. Therefore, I took my polymer clay and pressed it into the silicone form to have them equal size. For the iris, I pressed this wooden ball into the material to have a mold. After half an hour in the oven, her eyes were ready to paint. Like always, I painted the base of the iris with black and added the actual eye color, a nail polish, as usual. To be honest, I had such difficulties to decide which color to choose because I wanted something warm and cute like brown eyes to match her personality, but that would not have looked good with her skin. But then I found this nail polish and thought, okay, why not? And it turned out much cooler than I thought. The glitter particles in the nail polish weren't just pink, but all rainbowy. really pretty and good with her skin color. I also added a pupil before putting some UV resin on the eyes to finish them. It's always one drop, cure under UV light, one drop, and so on to mimic the lens of an actual eye. After the eyes were done, I added one last layer of Liquitex high gloss varnish on them. Now the eyes were ready to put them in the face. Therefore, I placed the head back on the body and added some lashes with PVA glue. And then, the moment of truth. I already learned that it's much easier to glue them inside the head by first wrapping a little epoxy around the eyeball and carefully pressing the clay against the plastic when the eyes are in the right place. But oh boy, these eyes gave me nightmares. I had so much struggle getting them right, smudging the epoxy all over the gloss. At one point I gave up, removed everything and made the eyes completely new, but one size smaller. I even removed the head and tried it again, but it still wasn't working. I came to the conclusion that the plastic was still too thick at some points and removed everything again. I took my Dremel and tried to thin out the plastic from the inside very carefully to not destroy the face up. But then the Dremel head catched some of the hair and destroyed a big part of the reroot. I was so close to a mental breakdown and had to take a break for a few hours. After that, I got back, rerooted the pulled out strands and took my X-Acto knife to thin out the plastic around the eyes a little. It somehow worked and I was able to place the eyes inside the head. Finally! It really felt like she was mad at me and didn't want me to finish her. Anyway, most parts are done. She now needed her ears back. Therefore, I used some strong glue, glued them on the head and fixed the wire with hot glue from the inside. The same strong glue I used for the head cap. While that dried, I had time for the tail. To be honest, I waited till the very end with that because I was really insecure how to make it. I then saw Dalmatian's videos and thought I could try it like this, even though I didn't have this white tape she puts around the wire, nor epoxy glue. But never mind, I used some wires and bent them together. After that, I used some already prepared yarn wefts to glue them on the tail piece by piece with hot glue. First, it was really difficult, therefore the tip looks a bit shabby, but I then got in the flow and it turned out pretty good. I know, it doesn't really look like a cat tail, more like a fox tail, but for my first try, I'm proud. To place the tail on the body, I just used my hot glue gun again. It would have been better if I used this 2-component glue, but I don't have something like this, so I'm sorry. I mean, it holds in place and the tail is movable. Just do it carefully. And here she is. I even placed the head back on. Again. And nothing cracked. Holy, I was so lucky. All in all, she turned out really beautiful, but I still had to do something with her hair. Yolandi wrote that she's supposed to be a cute character, so I thought some bangs would really fit her. Easier said than done, but I did my best. To tame the fluffy hair on her forehead, I used my trusty hot spoon method. It's very easy, because you can't use a flat iron on a doll head, just heat a spoon with a flat iron and press it against the yarn. Voila, tamed hair! To complete her hairstyle, I also braided her hair a little bit on the back. So, last thing to incorporate in her design was the request Asian. Therefore I sewed her a little kimono, or better a yukata, with the pattern of Requiem Arts from Etsy. I have to say, that's the best fitting outfit I ever made. Like, ever. For her accessories, I gave her the little golden belts I made earlier out of epoxy. One has a necklace and one around her tail. One last ribbon around her waist. And she's done! She turned out so cute. I really love her and I wish I could keep her. But she has to go to her new home and to her new family. Yolandi, I really hope you like her and that I could create something like you imagined. My name for her would be Ari. It was such a different experience to create something for someone else and I was a little stressed to be honest, but I did my best and I'm really happy with the result. I did not want to give her a story because she's not exactly my character, but I couldn't resist to think about her. So just a very rough idea what she's like. So, I imagine her to live in a small village somewhere in Asia. It's a simple but happy life. Ari was born with a very caring personality, not only because her parents have a small doctor's office in town in which she learned the importance of helping each other. She always liked and still likes to go out in the nature to collect plants and herbs for medicine. Now that she's a little older, she has the dream to go in a bigger city to learn more about modern medicine, so that one day she can come back with all the new knowledge and carry on with her parents' work. So yeah, just some small thoughts about her. I hope you like little Ari and the video about her. Thank you all so much for your support. The next video will be a little surprise because I started a slightly bigger project, so yes, be prepared. Until then, have a wonderful time, my little lynxes. See you soon. Tschüss!